Welcome to Lace 'em Up Podcast. On this podcast, I interview shoe customizers, designers, and artists. On this podcast, you're going to get to know a little bit about the designer behind your favorite customs, the customizer, their customizing style, their business model, how they make it work. People say there's no money in art. Art is a hard business. Every business is a hard business. But what I would say to you is to follow your passion and follow the thing that you love and listen to these interviews and these people and how they're chasing their dreams and putting creative work into the world and sharing their gifts and talents with all of us. Stick and stay with your boy. Let's get into it.
Listen, you want custom shoes, that's gonna take some bucks. Whatever you have for the price, go ahead and raise them up. Better get your spot now for it's taken up. When it's all said and done, my guy, lace them up. Come on, lace them up.
Welcome to the Lace 'em Up Podcast. I am David Hartman, aka Davidedo Designs, your host. As always, today's guest, I feel like he is one of the pioneers for custom shoe designs, at least for me. This man is consistent on YouTube, dropping tutorials every single week, keeping his business up and going. I feel like his turnover time on his shoes is ridiculous. To turn out something every week is amazing. Mr. Just Create himself, Dillon, say what's up to the people.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? Thanks for having me, David. Really excited to chat with you, bud.
Me too. Excited for the opportunity, and thank you for replying as well. So let's get started. Basically, just getting to know a little bit about you. So tell us about you, where you're from.
Yeah, so I am from Chicago, Illinois. I am now into, hard to believe, but my 10th year of customizing. I've been doing it full time now for about 8 years, but come later this fall will be the 10th year since I first picked up a paintbrush and laid it onto a pair of shoes. So
what pushed you to doing it full time? Was it just getting more customers or what?
Yeah, so I first started, it was my fall semester of my second year of college. I went to college for architecture, and the first pair that I did, it ended up taking me almost the entire semester because I would work on it one day, not get to it for another 2 weeks, and just busy with school. And so it took me about 3 months to finish that first pair, and as soon as I did, I ended up posting them to Instagram, and this is in the early days of Instagram. This is 2011. And just from there, people are like, hey, this is cool. Is this, a service you offer? Would you be willing to do a pair for me? And so I said, sure, so I wasn't charging too much starting out, and just said, I'll try and do them, but just a heads up, I'm still in school. So as far as timeline, it could take a little bit. I would try to tell people, it might be a month or two, and sometimes it would take even longer. And so I did that going on through that second year, and I had an internship also for at an architecture firm. So I just was looking at a zombie that entire year, but thankfully I was only like 19 at the time, so still had plenty of energy. And after leading into that summer, after my second year of college, I was let go from that internship because they lost a project that they were working on, didn't need me for the summer. So I said, okay, cool. What do I want to do to stay busy this summer? I wasn't taking any courses or classes or anything like that. So I said, you know what? Rather than going and trying to find another, retail job or something like that, let me go ahead and just see what I can do as far as with this little business and focus on, the client shoes that I already have regardless, and see what happens if I'm posting more consistently on social media and whatnot. Over that summer, it worked out really well for me. I was able to sort of start to get the wheels turning for turning it into a business. Leading into that third year of college, that entire third year was just hectic because the business was growing, and my third year of college was hard. And just anytime I was working on shoes, college, architecture, all that stuff was the furthest thing from my mind. But anytime I was in school, anytime I was working on, my studio work for college, anytime I was doing anything with school, all I could think about was shoes and getting back to clients and responding to emails and messages and stuff. So I realized that my passion was definitely with the shoes, and I absolutely loved it. And I said, okay, it's way too hard for me to do both. And I still had 2 more years of school. Architecture was a 5-year program where I went, and I just realized I wasn't passionate about it. And there was a long path anyway for me to become successful in that field. So it's not like I was, some stories you'll hear that, oh, I was a semester away and I might have had, a guaranteed paying job right away. There was quite a path for me to get through, a long path for architecture. So I said, you know what, let me just go with this full time and give it my everything. And I said the stereotypical, if it doesn't work out, I'll go back to school. And I haven't gone back yet. So thankfully it's worked out well for me.
Sounds like it's working out then.
Yeah.
So my next question for you is, what even started you to doing customs? You say you've been doing it for about 10 years now. I don't remember hearing a lot of people being like, oh yeah, I'm going to get custom shoes done and that kind of thing.
Right.
At that time frame. So what got you into starting that first pair?
So towards the tail end of high school is when I really got into shoes. I just sort of started to want to collect shoes and Jordans, and really even more so than Jordans, I really love Nike SBs. And I love Dunks, and those are still some of my favorite shoes. But that's what really got me into stuff. And so in college, being a broke college student, that's when LeBron went to Miami and the South Beach LeBron 8s released. And I wanted them so bad. I loved how loud they were. You know what I mean? It was such an insane colorway, the turquoise and the pink. So certainly couldn't afford the shoes. And then I saw a guy named El Cappy, who's one of my favorite customizers of all time. I think he's doing a little bit less nowadays. I think he's moved into some other things. But I saw he painted a pair of Jordan 6s in that colorway with the turquoise and the pink. And I said, you know what? I got a pair of the white varsity red Jordan 6s laying around. Let me go ahead and grab some cheap acrylic paint from Michael's and try to recreate them myself. And so that's what I did. I bought, the $1 or $2, $3 bottles, whatever they are, from Michael's of the cheap acrylic paint. Just laid it down on some of those white leather 6s, and that's what just really got me started. I wanted to recreate a shoe that I couldn't afford or recreate a colorway on another shoe that I couldn't afford.
Okay, awesome. So that's a whole nother conversation. We won't get into that one. Originals versus customs. We won't get into that.
Right.
But you did mention SBs. So tell me about what shoe that you fell in love with, and what was the story behind it?
Wow. What's so funny is what I love about SBs is that they, to me, were doing some of the most unique collabs and stuff, or themed colorways and stuff. Like one of my all-time favorite shoes is the Freddy Krueger SB Dunks. That's still just a holy grail of mine. I can't even imagine what they cost nowadays. But just to have one of those would be incredible. So I just love that they would take these iconic colorways and characters from movies and TV shows and even bands and stuff, and they would have their own shoe. But it wasn't like potentially even a lot of the stuff that I do nowadays where there's huge branding or huge characters or huge portrait on the sides. It was simple colorways to where it was sort of about the details that really made some of these SB Dunks stand out. So the Freddy Kruegers were definitely one of my favorites. That's one that I can't even remember how I was first introduced to those, but the Heineken Dunks, I mean, there's so many awesome SB colorways from the early to mid 2000s, but one of the first ones that I got wasn't even a really cool collab or anything, but it was the Nike SB Chrome Ball pack. So there was a Dunk Low and a Dunk High, and I just thought that the colorways were really dope. And that, to me, that's what always was my favorite thing about SBs, is even more so than Jordans nowadays. I think they have some of the coolest colorways and color palettes and color selections and stuff.
So out of those, or out of shoes, period, what's that first shoe that you were like begging your parents to purchase for you and that you wanted? You give us a little bit of that story.
First shoe that I had to, I would probably say when I really got into shoes, I was like 17, 18. So it was past the point of me being able to ask my parents for anything. But the first shoe that I know I spent a ton of money on was the original Nike Air Yeezys in the Blink colorway, the black and pink. I mean, just what a unique shoe. And Kanye, being a Chicago guy, have always loved Kanye. And when he had his own shoe, I just thought it's just so unique and stuff. And some of my favorite artists were wearing them. Kanye, Cudi. When those first came out, it was a big deal. And that was kind of pre social media. So I can't even imagine nowadays. I mean, people still love, Adidas Yeezys, but when the Nike Yeezys drop, those are something special.
Yeah, definitely. I never had the pleasure of being able to get any, but I definitely have been able to admire them from afar.
Yeah.
I would say trying to get a hold of them are a little bit of a task. So my next question, just coming from a customizing standpoint, what would you say your style is if you had to define it?
Yeah, it's tough to define, and I like to more so describe it as I want to be versatile. I always like to compare customizing to tattooing, and I think the goal is, with a great tattooer, to be able to handle any tattoo that comes in the shop. So I always reference this show, but one of my favorite shows of all time is this tattoo competition called Ink Master, and usually the person who wins it may not even be the best tattoo artist there, but there's a good chance they're the most well-rounded, because one week there's going to be a challenge of portrait stuff. Next week it's going to be black and gray. Then the next week it's going to be comic book style. So you need to you don't even necessarily need to be the best at every single one of those. You just need to not be the worst in the room at each one of those, essentially, is what it comes down to. So just being really well-rounded, being able to handle everything that comes your way. But of course, when I do have complete freedom, I like to create something that's really bold, really colorful, heavy on the saturation, heavy on the texture work, the stencil work, and something that takes designing that a lot of us do in a 2D sphere, and rather than it being just like a mock-up that's 2D, a lot of the artwork is something that's better viewed in 3D, to where some of the details are so much better when you have the shoe in your hand and you're actually able to spin it around and view it from different points. So often we're designing from the flat side view, but shoes are also viewed, especially by the people that are wearing them, from up top and from this view. You know what I mean? As if you're looking down at your 2 feet. And not a lot of people design that way sometimes. So I think that's the best way to describe it. Versatile, and can hopefully handle anything that comes my way.
Okay. So I guess that brings up a question for me. I know when I work on mine, I pretty much design everything on the computer before I get started.
Yep.
And I'm learning other people have different methods to their madness. So what would you say is yours?
Yeah, so design-wise, I do start typically with the simple 2D mock-up. I like to use Photoshop if I'm working on the computer, or Procreate if I'm going to be on, designing on the iPad or whatnot. But I'm still a little bit faster in Photoshop. Just kind of picked that up in college, and I do like to start designing in there, really just to play around with color selection and color balance and stuff. A lot of the stuff that I was doing when I was starting out was, and still some of my favorite stuff, was kind of just like team colorways. So if we just take, for example, since I'm a Chicago guy, let's take a look at the Chicago Bears. Trying to find the balance of, if you have a Chicago Bears themed shoe, trying to find that balance between that navy blue and that orange. How bold do you want this to be? Do you want it to be 50-50? Are you going to try and do a blue to orange fade? Well, those are complementary colors, so it's going to be hard to fade them. And in that area where they meet, that might not be very pretty, potentially. But so how are you going to sort of balance those things? And, or am I going to have a shoe that's maybe 90% navy blue, and you have those tiny little accents throughout where it's only 10% orange, but maybe that's a really nice balance, and it'll go better with a lot of the majority of the Bears gear and whatnot. So I like to just play around with those things initially in Photoshop. And another theme that I refer to a lot is, a lot of customizers like to do a good Joker theme. That's become one of the most popular themes. And so how are you going to balance that purple versus that white versus that red versus that green? Those are sort of the 4 main colors that you might want to incorporate in a good Joker theme. And are you going to have a 90% purple shoe and maybe just some red laces, a little bit of green details? Or are you going to have a heavily white shoe and maybe just a little bit of purple and a little bit of red? What are you going to do? So that's how I utilize Photoshop and whatnot for my design process. And then just, maybe sizing up how big I want the characters or the logos or the portraits or whatever else I'm going to be including. But it really just starts with that color balance and figuring out that right colorway. And it's funny, I'm glad that we already talked about how some classic Nike SBs are some of my favorite, because I just think they have that perfect balance when it comes to the colorway and the color blocking and stuff. So that's what I love about Dunks. All those little panels just leave you a lot to do when you're figuring out that perfect color blocking for your design.
Nice. So I heard you, I know you're from Chicago, and I heard you mention Bears. So as a fan of football, I was really, really trying to see where Justin Fields was going to go. So it sounds like you guys got him. That's going to be exciting.
Man, oh man, we have been begging for an athletic quarterback here for years. We have I don't know if any franchise has been more tortured with their quarterback play than the Chicago Bears. We always hang our hat on defense, and we still got some players that can play D. I mean, anytime you got Khalil Mack on your team, and you're gonna be competitive on that side of the ball. But to have something that can excite you on offense is something we've been begging for, especially just 4 short years ago.
Yeah.
Trading a lot of picks to move up to number 2 and to not get Mahomes or Watson, or I think there was even another guy in that class. There might have been one more. But to know there's some guys who might be at the top of the league, and to pass them up for Trubisky, that hurts. So I'm glad we're excited over here, definitely.
Yeah, I'm excited. I want to see what he's going to do. So I've been following him since high school, actually. So I want to see.
Oh, really? Are you an Ohio State fan? Is that why?
No, I just I started watching him on a Netflix special. Like number 1 quarterbacks or high school quarterbacks or something.
Oh, cool.
And he was on there, and I just started following him from there. And so I was curious to see where he went. So I think that's awesome.
Nice. We're excited.
My next question for you is going to be, first of all, I know you do a lot of cleats and stuff for different athletes and stuff. So who would you say is probably the most famous person you've done cleats for, and the ones that you probably held as the most special ones that you've done?
Okay, most famous. That's tough. Most famous. Let me think. Okay, so when he was, he might be the best in the league right now. When in his second and third year, Devontae Adams, I did his cleats every single week before he signed with Jordan Brand. He was just wearing Nike cleats. He was just wearing Vapor Untouchables. So this was the 16 and 17 season. Every single week I did his cleats before he signed a deal with Jordan. And then he said, hey, man, they're making me my own colorways now. I'm picking them out every week. So I don't need to have somebody who does that anymore. But that was a big timer. One of the first cleats I did, I don't think he's even in the league now, but it was a big deal then, was Mark Sanchez when he was with the Eagles. He wore them. This was before there was even My Cause, My Cleats or anything. This is right before that custom cleats craze really took over. He wore a pair for Veterans Day. So we just had the digicamo that matched the beanie and whatnot, and the little towel that they wear was in a digicamo, and he had these cool digicamo cleats that we did in an Eagles colorway. And then I know after the game on the field, he ended up having a good game. It was a Monday Night Football game. He got interviewed, and I know they were talking, the analysts were pointing out his cleats and stuff. So that was pretty cool. That was probably about 6 years ago now. But somebody that I'll just always hold in high regard is Eric Ebron. I've been doing his cleats every single week since he's been in the league, and he's in his 7th year now. So absolutely crazy. He's somebody who's just brought me an insane amount of business. He's somebody who's become a friend. I mean, I literally get to talk to him every week. And it's gone beyond football now. So super cool to know how that relationship has evolved and how much I owe to him for helping me grow as an artist and challenging me to do all these crazy ideas that he has. So that's been a fun relationship to have.
Yeah, that's dope. That sounds exciting. And can I say your turnover time is amazing, because me trying to get a pair of shoes done in a week is, woo, That's a lot of work. So the turnover time is amazing, especially as many as I've seen like on your YouTube channel, you're working on at one time or doing a month. I think that is crazy. So sounds like you got everything pretty down pat, and the problem solving skills that have to be through the roof.
They do. Thank you for that. Yeah. And I mean, like I said, 10 years now, I have done it every day for 10 years. So you definitely start to become a whole lot more efficient. But what's crazy is you start to just nitpick yourself even more. So even details that my eye literally wouldn't have seen 5-6 years ago, or certainly when starting out, now my eye forces me to say, okay, I gotta tweak that even a little bit more and make it just as 100% as perfect as possible. So now, even though I'm more efficient, sometimes things can still take me even longer because I'm an even more harsh critic on myself.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess kind of in the same vein of the last question, what person, dead or alive, would you want to make a custom for, and what would that custom be and why?
So Michael Jordan is way up there, of course. I'd love to do, you don't see too many Jordans that have the craziest designs, but I would love to do a pair that just has all of his accolades on there. So his career points, how many times he's been an all-star, how many times he was, finals MVP, just something that has all of his accolades on there, because there's no combination of red, white, and black or gold or anything that I could do that would be better than has already been done on all 35 Jordan retro shoes that we have at this point. So he would be way up there, and Derrick Rose would also be way, way, way up there. Even though he's an Adidas guy, it'd be really, I know there's a lot of pictures of him in high school wearing Jordans and stuff, and pictures of him growing up, of course, being a Chicago guy, of him wearing Jordans and stuff. So even though he wouldn't be able to wear them, but to make him a really cool pair of Jordans would be way up there on the list.
Yeah, definitely put him in a glass case in a room somewhere.
Exactly.
So.
Yep.
That Jordan idea would be nice, probably on a pair of tins too.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're very much just like that. Yeah, with the sole, how that has all of his accolades. Yeah, perfect.
Definitely. So this next person is probably going to be hard for you, since you've been doing it for almost 10 years now. What would you say is your top 5 customs that you've ever created?
Top 5. Okay, so thankfully, it is a very hard question, but I just walked through this exercise a little bit. I did a video on YouTube, and it was about my top 10 pairs. So let me work backwards from number 5, and I know what my number 1 is just because it was my most challenging, but we'll start with number 5.
I know which one that is.
Yeah. Let's see here. So number 5, I'm going to go with, I did a collab with the Brooklyn Nets 3 years ago when they released their City Edition jerseys that were inspired by the Biggie Coogee sweater. And I was reached out to by the CFO of the team just to create a Brooklyn Nets colorway just for him to wear. And then after I did them, he just said, I want a simple black and white pair, did them. And then he said, hey, I happen to be the CFO of the team. Can you make me a pair that's going to release with these jerseys that we're going to be releasing later in the year? And he sent me the early mock-ups of the jersey and stuff. And I said, wow, this is really cool. I would, of course, love to do them. So he loved those. And then once I sent him that, he said, okay, cool. Now I want to give some to some of our season ticket holders. So we ended up making like 4 more pairs on top of that. He gifted them as Christmas presents. That went well. And he said, you know what? I want to have a public release in the stadium with the shoes, and we'll limit them to 200 pairs. So over the next few months, I was back and forth between Chicago and Brooklyn, and I think 4 times, we would have a little pop-up inside the stadium, and we'd have all the shoes that you could see. We did it on a Jordan 1 and an Air Force, both in white and black with that Coogee print. And so that was just absolutely insane, just being a sports fan, hard to believe type moment that, you're inside the Barclays Center and you're selling custom painted shoes that you designed and stuff. So that one will always be up there. He's moved on, and he's working with the Pistons now in a similar position, and I I'm working on something that might become a public release again. So I'm very excited about that opportunity. But after that, I would say number 4, this is tough. There's a pair that I did, a pair of Jordan 5s that were done in like a traditional Japanese tattoo style. I always reference tattoo artists, some of my favorite. So to just freestyle a Japanese tattoo theme with a koi fish, a henna mask, all that was really cool. I think that's a pair, if somebody ever asks, hey, sort of how you ask, what's your style? I think that's a pair that is really helps somebody get a good feel for it. The next pair was this Madagascar Sunset Moth Jordan 1s. We held a competition when we had 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we had everybody send in designs, and we said, we're going to pick the coolest one, and then we're going to bring it to life and give it away. So there was a pair that was sent in by OCD Custom, and it was inspired by the Madagascar Sunset Moth, which I had never even seen, but it's just this beautiful butterfly that just has this array of colors that just work so well together. And I just love how those turned out. It might be one of the most vibrant, eye-catching shoes I've ever designed, and it wasn't even my design. I just brought them to life with paint. So that's really cool. I love the story behind that. Next up will be I did a Chucky Air Force One, and that was really cool. I've always loved Chucky in the Child's Play series, and we had a lot of fun with that. For the first time, I incorporated a little bit of liquid latex, which is like what people wear for Halloween for makeup on their face to create scars and stuff. So I tried to recreate some of Chucky's scars on the shoe. So it was a little bit more of like a display piece. That's not something that would actually hold up if it were to be worn and creased and whatnot. So that pair is a really cool display piece to show people, something that I'm really proud of. And then number 1, I did this Scottie Pippen portrait on a pair of Jordan 1s. I meshed together all of the Bulls jerseys from the 90s, and they have some really iconic, that right away, as soon as you just see some of the panels, those black with the red stripes, how the piping works on that red jersey, how it goes from white to black to red and whatnot. They just have such iconic jerseys. And then I did this Scottie Pippen portrait that just took me well over 100 hours. And it was just one of the most labor-intensive, frustrating, but yet rewarding projects that I've ever done. So that pair is number 1 for me, just based off of how much work I know went into it.
Yeah. So I've seen most of those actually on your YouTube page. I've been following you for a while. But I also like the Kobe Bryant ones you did with his portrait on it. I was like, man, that had to take forever to try to do. But yeah, those are definitely some dope ones. I'm aware of all the ones that you mentioned. So
thank you.
This next one is going to be in the same vein, but it may be a little bit harder. So I know you do a segment where you review other people's customs, right? Mm-hmm. What would you say are the top 3 that you've ever received to review?
That is way harder. That's way harder. Yeah, that one's way harder. Okay, top 3 that I've seen. Wow, we've seen some crazy stuff. There was a pair that we just had in our most recent episode, and it was a pair of Air Force Ones, but what the artist did, Zuki Customs, I'll of course shout out all of these artists, Zuki Customs, he took leftover swooshes from a ton of other Air Force One projects. He typically does a lot of Air Force Customs where he'll remove the swoosh and paint a portrait on the side or a cartoon, a graphic, whatever. So rather than throwing away all these swooshes, he went ahead and basically glued all of these additional swooshes onto another pair of Air Force Ones. And every single swoosh was completely different. And he had all of these different brands and colorways, like a Sour Patch Kids Nike swoosh, a butterfly swoosh, a Memphis Grizzlies colorway swoosh. There were so many unique ones, and it was just like, this is a pair that is a conversation piece. It's literally a work of art. It's something that pushes the boundaries. It's just remarkable. It's just different. It's just trying something unique, being willing to fail. A lot of people are going to look at that and think that's too over the top and whatnot, but that's what artists need to do. You need to take risk and whatnot. So I absolutely love those. Let's see. The second one, there was, let me think. That's tough. That's really tough. There was I had an artist by the name of Just Win Customs on, who, again, it was another pair of Air Forces. He does a lot of people would probably recognize his work for doing these bandana swooshes, and it literally looks like he folded a bandana and glued it onto a shoe and had it folded up and wrapped properly, but it's somehow hand painted. But how realistic he's able to make a leather swoosh look like a bandana was just absolutely incredible. And it's funny, when I was reviewing them, I thought to myself, how would I potentially do these? And what I thought about was, I would actually, for reference, I would take a bandana and fold it around something, maybe even cut out a swoosh out of, wood or cardboard or something, and wrap it around there, and actually think to myself, this is how the folds would actually look of the bandana. So I know I reached out to him after. I said, man, I got to ask about your process a little. What did you do for those? And right away, he pulls out a big cardboard cutout of a Nike swoosh and said, I wrapped a bandana around here for reference. And I said, that is so smart. This way you could actually see how it would fold, how it would bend, how would, light interact with it and all this stuff. So that was absolutely incredible. To see those in person, because I saw them all over Instagram, was really cool. And then maybe my favorite pair that I've seen was from an artist, Rupsy Banks. He did these Frankenstein's monster, because you can't say Frankenstein. Everybody gets mad when you don't, mention that it's the monster, not Dr. Frankenstein. He did these Frankenstein's monsters, Jordan 1s, where he just captured some incredible texture and all the staples and the gore and the cuts. And it was just a really cool colorway that, it just took a risk and did something very bold and unique. And that was definitely one of my favorite pairs that I've seen.
Nice. Dope. So we're getting close to the last couple of questions here. But before we get to that, explain to us what Just Create means. What does that stand for?
Yeah, so to me, it's just about, I think one of the most asked questions is sort of, how do you get out of artist block? What do you do when you don't know what your next step is? What do you do when you don't have, potentially any paying customers? What do you do when you can't get your first client? What do you do when it feels like your business is stalling? And just, I'm somebody who likes to sort of look up at the walls and, have reminders, or maybe just even a little Post-it note by yourself. So I've always had different notes all around me throughout my stages of my career. And just the one that I've always gone back to, just sometimes when I see it, is just create. And literally just that, like, that's the motto, that when you're tired, just create. When you don't know what to do, just create. When you feel you're hitting the wall, just create. That's what's going to get you over that hump. And, you can't you don't want to lose focus or lose motivation because maybe somebody didn't like your last project. You just got to move on to that next project. Or you don't want to lose focus because you seemingly don't have any clientele right now. Keep creating more, and then maybe they'll like that next thing. And when you think you've created enough, how can you now take this art form and turn it into content and grow on social media? So how can you how can you just start to become a real growing business? And that's going to come through social media. So creating content around your stuff and having fun with that also. And so to me, when, that's one of my most asked questions. Like I said, how do you get over artist block? What do you do when you're in a rut? And it's just create more, create for yourself. So many people forget to do that. As a customizer, you're always just creating artwork for other people, but take the time, set the time aside, turn yourself into the paying client. What do you want? What is the type of artwork that you want to put out into the world? Because sometimes people will ask me, hey, I'm not able to gain clients to do the artwork style that I want. I'm only able to get clients who want me to do, LV Air Forces or something like that, whatever the popular trend is at the time. And then they'll show me their Instagram, and that's all it is. It's just a bunch of LV Air Forces in different colorways and Gucci Air Forces, and that's all they're posting. So that's all clients are seeing. So that's all people are going to ask for, because what are the chances that then a client sees that and says, okay, cool, can you make me a pair of Disney Vans? Yeah, it's not to say that wouldn't happen, but it's a little bit less likely. So you got to put the artwork out into the world that you want to be doing. So if you want to move into painting Disney Vans, you need to start posting those, not LV Air Forces. You know what I mean? So if you want to start doing portraits, if you want to move into that stuff, you got to start posting it and whatnot.
Definitely. So, what's now and what's next for you?
What's now is one thing that I'm really, really excited about is it's a little bit what's now, what's next is our custom sneaker course. So we held our first one last year. We announced it at the end of January. It was going to be held in the middle of April, but unfortunately everything shut down, obviously middle of March last year. So we had to postpone it, and it was for 20 people. We sold out within the first week. And so as everything started, it started to look like it might get a little bit better towards the end of last summer. We said, hey, we even had some international people. So we said, okay, I know not everybody's going to be able to come, but we're going to do an in-person one for anybody who feels comfortable and is able to come. That was at the end of last August. And for anybody who's not able to come, we're going to send you everything, and then we're going to do a virtual one. So we did the in-person one with 10 of the people. That was at the end of August. It was absolutely amazing. It was an awesome 2 days. My first time doing that, hosting a course and doing something for 2 days like that. So it was a great learning experience. And then we did the virtual one in February. I had to get through football season and whatnot because that's the craziest stretch of months for us every year. So once we got past that, late February, we did the virtual one. That was really cool too. It was interesting to sort of see the differences between both. And I'm very excited to hopefully announce our next one, the second one, which should be at the end of this summer also. We're looking at most likely in August. So we should be announcing that hopefully some point in June. So there's about 2 months to everybody can, get everything in line to be able to come to that. Really excited to hopefully do those maybe 3 or 4 times a year. And to me, that's definitely the thing that I've realized I'm the most passionate about now is just helping others, really trying to help build others up within the custom sneaker community and hopefully just try to pass on some of my trial and error that I've walked through and help people try to avoid some of the mistakes. But, sometimes you still learn best from making your own mistakes. So just trying to help people, push them in the right direction and just help build others up within our community. So
Definitely. So I'm going to call this kind of our lace it up segment or lace up segment. So kind of the reason why I chose the name for the podcast, because I feel like the laces are the first and last thing you touch when you get to work on a custom. And wrapping everything up is putting those laces back in and finally getting a chance to step away and look at the complete work with everything there. So 2 questions for this, and then we'll call it good. So first question is going to be, who do you feel should be on the podcast next, and could you help us get them on there?
Ooh, okay. Next up on the podcast, who should you have? Who have you had so far?
You're the first one, right?
I'm the first one. One. One honor. Thank you for that. Okay, let me see. Who should you have next? Let me think. There's maybe Vic Almighty from Rejuvenator. I think that'd be a really cool one. Vic's done. He's been there. He's been in the industry just as long as me too. I know. So I know it'd be really cool to hear about his story. I would say, I think Vic would be a great guest that people would love to learn a little bit more about Vic's story and a little bit more of the personal side of Vic, not just Vic, the Rejuvenator customizer and whatnot. I think that'd be really cool.
I reached out to him, so hopefully we'll hear back. I'll keep trying.
I'll shoot him a follow-up for sure.
Awesome. Appreciate it. The last thing before I ask you to share your information where everybody can find you at is, what is a secret tip that you can give customizers out here in this world?
My secret tip is that you need to spend as much time planning how you want to grow your business and planning out your content as you do on the artwork and painting shoes, because I didn't do that for probably my first 6 or 7 years. It was just head down and let's paint nonstop. And then I think things really started to take a turn for me when I started to take content more serious and planning out the next move in business and whatnot, because otherwise, you know what I mean? If you're doing good work, you're never going to run out of work, and you'll literally be in that hamster wheel of fulfilling client order after client order forever and never set aside time to plan out your next step, because your next step's always just going to be that next order. Grab that next pair off the shelf and you're never going to really be able to be multiple steps ahead. So spending way more time on content also, because at the end of the day, we all have to play the game of social media. We're all, we're all part of that and trying to grow on all these different platforms. There's so many nowadays, but really try to focus on growing on one. You know what I mean? Whether that's going to be TikTok or YouTube or Instagram, try to put, a lot of stock into one and really try to grow that one. But don't forget about the others, because you never know what could happen that could, go viral overnight per se on any of those platforms that could really, ultimately change your business. So really setting aside time to make sure that your content looks premium also, because if you want to have a premium product and you want to charge premium prices, you're also going to have premium photography. So
correct. I've heard you say that several times too on your channel. Definitely. So, speaking of channels, where can the people find you?
Yeah, so we are at DeJesus Custom Footwear on YouTube. That is also our Instagram name. And we have a Facebook page also, same name, DeJesus Custom Footwear. So you can find us on any of those. Reach out to us on any of those platforms. I try as hard as possible to get back to everybody, because just helping people grow in the custom sneaker community, and no matter how repetitive some of the questions may be, that's also a good thing, because that means new people are finding out about this little niche and whatnot. So I know some people may say, oh, you answer the same questions over and over, let's talk about something else. But that means new people are finding us. So that's always a great thing. That's always very encouraging for us also. So you can find us on any of those platforms.
Yeah, definitely. And I also have used the toothpick tip a little bit too myself.
Oh, awesome.
So,
awesome.
That I found that helpful a couple of times, especially on
Definitely.
touch up on some lettering on some shoes. So
that's where it really comes in handy for sure. Those tiny little details.
There you have it. That has been the first edition of the Lace 'em Up podcast. Dillon, thank you for being on the show. All of his information will be down below in the description box. Make sure you follow him on all his social media. Go follow him on his website. Support this man. Support his business. Once again, if you have not subscribed to this channel yet, please do so. We will be hitting you over the head every 2 weeks with another interview with another customizer.
Go.
Until then, stay tuned. Stick and stay with your boy. And we out.
Forward. Listen, it takes wisdom to grab these sneakers and spin them. Cut a couple of linen and match them up with the denim called Davidedo. He'll cook it up like a kilo and have your Ep1s appropriate with the stilo. He's no Lilo, but he's mean with the stitch. Got supreme lean dreams with a season to kick. Feel heap how he comes with the gift, and you can call him Skipper how he got his run of the ship. Listen, you want custom shoes, that's gonna take some bucks. Whatever you have for the price, go ahead and raise them up. Better get your spot now for it's taken up. When it's all said and done, my guy, lace him up. Come on, lace him up for it's all said and done, my guy, lace him up. Lace him up for it's all said and done. Let's go, lace him up.